Hey everyone, welcome back to the Poplar Report. This morning I shared with you that I am in this location for a very specific reason, that this was a scene of a major battle that you may never have heard of. You may have. But the simple fact is that a major ship was lost just off the coast here in a major situation. We're going to talk about how that relates to what's going on today and cover some of the decisions that were made here on this island that affected history. And there's some things that we need to take some away from that. All right, friends, let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and you're not getting this stuff anywhere else. Welcome to Oscarsborg. It is a castle on this island. It's actually two islands. There's another island right back there. And this island is not where the artillery cannons were, but rather this little concrete pad down here somewhere. It's over there somewhere. There it is. The concrete pad is actually a torpedo battery. And in World War II, 1940, April 9th to be exact, in the morning at around 4 a.m., the Germans tried to launch a surprise attack here on Norway by ramming their ships right up this fjord. They ran into limited opposition. The Norwegians were just not prepared for it. They didn't believe the Germans would do it. And the Germans launched a surprise attack up the fjord. They pushed past the coastal batteries, received little resistance, until they came to this island, Oscarsborg, where a training center was for coastal battery artillerymen. So they came here and trained, but this wasn't really supposed to be a major defensive position. And so they didn't expect that. And they didn't know about that torpedo battery down there. So, April 9th, 1940, the Germans come rolling up the fjord. They run into one coastal battery after the next, who have been ordered not to fire live rounds. It's peacetime after all. They're not supposed to just go and start attacking ships that they don't know what they are. They're supposed to fire warning shots. And in the case of the ships still persisting, they can then fire live rounds. But by that time, they were a little far away. And so the ships came running right up this fjord. Colonel Erickson, commanding this training post, saw them coming up the fjord, didn't know who they were, but saw the other coastal batteries open fire. So he ordered his men to load explosive shells into their cannons, which was a direct violation to his standing orders. When he was confronted with this, he had a great phrase here. He said, "I'll either be decorated or court-martialed. Fire." And they did. They had two 35-centimeter cannons, which are basically like 11 inchers. And they fired at the Blucher, the German heavy cruiser coming up. They fired twice at point-blank range and hit it twice. At a training school, you can expect nothing less, right? They hit the Blucher twice, set it afire. They also hit one of the radio mast as well. And so the Blucher is on fire, but the captain of the Blucher thinks that he can just push through the artillery fire and get to Oslo. Just down the fjord here, a little ways further, is Oslo, just around the corner. It's actually kind of in the outskirts of the city. And there the king of Norway is waiting with his government, unaware of the situation. Colonel Erickson ordered that they open fire. They damage and injure the Blucher, pushes through until he comes to the torpedo battery. The Germans didn't know about the torpedo battery. And so when the torpedo battery fired two torpedoes, one of them hit the Blucher, and it just exploded. and its fate was now sealed. It was no damage control that was going to save it. And just a little further up the fjord, it sank. About 600 sailors and soldiers did not get off of it. Of the 1,400 that did, most of them were captured by Norwegian soldiers on the coast. The Germans didn't know what happened. They just saw the Blucher just explode from underneath. Didn't know what had happened. All the other German ships pulled back and waited. The king, the government, the Norwegian government were able to escape. Their command and control, many of their soldiers were able to escape Oslo as well to meet up and link up with soldiers up in the north to continue the fighting. German paratroopers came in and took the airport outside Oslo, and Oslo fell due to the paratroopers. The Navy wasn't able to make it up this fjord, thanks to Colonel Eriksson and the Oscarsborg fortification here. They later surrendered because they had no infantry support on either side of the fjord. We're kind of in the middle of the fjord. It's an island. It's two sets of islands, and they surrendered because they didn't have any infantry support. Didn't have anyone around them, and it was kind of a pointless, futile resistance. So they surrendered. He was indeed decorated for that, and he gave his nation some hope. So, what are some of the takeaways from that? Well, one, he had orders. He had very clear orders that he disobeyed, and that was important. We have a lot of rules happening right now that are destroying the nation of the USA, other nations. A lot of orders and rules are being made. Following the law now kind of means endangering your nation, doesn't it? If you're being told to catch and release, if you're being told to ignore things, we need some Colonel Erikssons who will do the right thing regardless of what the orders are. That's one thing. I lost my notepad. Kamala Harris out there in the debate had some interesting things to say that kind of directly relate here. She was saying how wonderful things are going in Ukraine, how she thought that what NATO was doing was fantastic and wonderful. They should just keep on doing what they're doing. Just keep throwing money, munitions, money to pay off all sorts of people, not getting to the right places. But, you know, as long as a bunch of it's being echoed back to the Democrats, and we all know that that is getting back into their pockets, literally. So we have that going on. Donald Trump did not agree to that. They asked him, you know, whether he thought that the Ukraine should win the war. And obviously that's not a clear answer anymore. Why? Well, because things are not so clear. The United States is not Ukraine. And anyone who wants to make it out to be that it's not. Ukraine is not a U.S. ally and has not been a U.S. ally. And so anyone who suggests that it is, that it's somehow equated, is wrong. They're just wrong. I don't care if they're running for president. Also, Kamala Harris had something else to say. She said that if we don't defeat Russia in Ukraine, Poland will be next, which is just about as ignorant as you can get. It's ignorant enough that it's not ignorant, it's purposeful. Some people throw the term fear-mongering around. When you're earning something off of it, when you are truly profiting from it, that's what we're talking about here. Kamala Harris and the Democrats and their industrial military complex benefits from the war. And they can't have people stop being all in for it. And so if that means terrifying a country like Poland, the idea that Russia will get done with Ukraine and immediately go into Poland or something is stupid at a level that I don't think is even possible. Why is that? Well, one, because Poland is part of NATO. What happens if Russia goes into Poland? Well, German troops come across the border, the French troops come across the border, the US troops start arriving. And I'm sorry, but when we start talking about Ukrainian troops compared to US troops and NATO troops, we're talking about orders of magnitude different. Like, it's not even close. The ability of the Russians to combat NATO on the ground inside of a NATO country is just ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, doesn't even make sense. The idea that U.S. Airborne soldiers would get there almost instantaneously. We got armor pre-positioned. We have a lot of troops already in Europe ready to go. And so do the Europeans. So it's just like, there's no chance. The Polish army itself could probably hold its own against the Russians. Invading a country, as the Germans discovered, is not so easy. Especially when you're talking about water being involved, right? The Germans did take Norway, but it cost them a lot more than they thought it would. And when they tried invading Russia, that didn't go so well. When they invaded France, when they invaded other countries, things didn't go so well over the long haul, did it? People who talk about how war is going to happen, this and that, usually have absolutely no concept of how war actually unfolds. I mean, when we start looking at the GDPs of Russia, $2.24 trillion, which is about half what Germany is. Germany has twice the GDP of Russia, okay? Germany itself could outspend Russia twice. Now, Poland is 1/3 of the GDP of Russia. So, I mean, I can see that a little bit, but the thing is, when you start looking at populations, Poland is not some pushover. Now, Poland decided not to invest in its defense. They didn't even get up to the 2% required by the NATO until 2019. That's the first time they really got up to, and that was due to Donald Trump's challenges to them, right? And other Europeans, like, why do you think that we're going to come defend you when you're not choosing to defend yourself? So Poland has started to take that seriously. They're talking about next year actually getting up to 5% of the GDP. Now, they have some catch-up to do for sure. But still, the simple fact is that they're rocking F-16 fighter jets. That's a little bit better than what the Russians have. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that they have F-35s stationed right off their border, that would certainly come to their assistance. The tank legions of Russia have been chewed up. Russia is having trouble fielding tanks. I mean, they have a whole bunch of tanks, but they've been going through them, right? The Russian army is going to take time to they have to basically restructure their entire military after this Ukrainian fiasco for them. This did not go as well as they thought it would. And the fact that they can't roll through Ukraine tells me that there is absolutely zero chance they could knock off Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. They just can't do it. And anyone who's telling you that, oh, well, they're next, doesn't understand the first thing about what's going on over there. So, Yeah, invasions are not easy. Sometimes you just run into somebody like Colonel Erickson who decides that he's going to fight. The other bureaucrats may not fight. The other bureaucrats may follow the rules. But then again, you run into some guy who's defending his backyard and he says, "Not in my backyard. Germans, time to go home." And Colonel Erickson sent quite a few Germans home, right here at Oscarsborg, just outside Oslo. It's a great little island, great thing to see if you're ever out this way. Historical. They got the artillery guns on the other side of the island. I'm going to go visit those and see those before I scamper back to the mainland before time's out. Where will I be next? That is an interesting question. You can take your guesses down below. But back to the U.S., that's not going to happen just yet. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining with us, and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you saw something worth seeing, and hopefully you had that tied in to some current events and some thoughts out there. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.